We're cutting right to the chase today. We are diving deep into the playbook of one of the most successful and certainly one of the most polarizing figures in modern American history, Donald J. Trump.
Exactly. And our source material is laser focused on his business philosophies. We're drawing heavily from the strategies in The Art of the Deal and a really detailed career retrospective that goes up through early 2025.
And our mission here, just to be absolutely clear, is non-political.
Completely. We are treating this material like a strategic business manual. It's a huge case study.
Right. We're here to pull out the essential, the actionable nuggets of knowledge. How does he approach a negotiation? What are his rules for risk?
And maybe the most fascinating part, how did he build one of the most powerful personal brands the world has ever seen?
Yes. And what stands out immediately when you look through these sources is this core paradox. This whole philosophy, it's not one single thing. It's this brilliant kind of messy cocktail of outrageous theatrical ambition.
Mixed with this surprisingly cold, calculated caution. And just pure showmanship on top.
Exactly. It's a playbook that resulted in skyscrapers, casinos, and, well, eventually the presidency. So today we're going to peel back those layers of hype and get down to the operational truth that built this career.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So we have to start with the foundation of this empire. And the very first cornerstone is almost breathtakingly simple. You have to aim extraordinarily high.
That's the core engine. It's all about setting the psychological tone for every single negotiation. The strategy in the book says you set your sights on something absolutely enormous.
Something that seems unrealistic to almost anyone else.
Precisely. And then you just maintain this relentless pressure, pushing and pushing until a result is achieved. The sources really stress that by starting from such a high, ambitious place, even if the final deal gets scaled down,
It's still bigger than what the other guy thought was even possible.
it often exceeds what a competitor would have considered a massive win.
But this isn't just about starting with a high price, is it? It seems like it's about the sheer scale of the vision itself.
That's it exactly. If you only ask for a little, you'll only get a little. It's a simple concept. If your starting point is low, your final landing spot is automatically limited. By aiming extraordinarily high, you're giving yourself the maximum possible room to negotiate.
And you're signaling confidence.
Huge confidence. Even if the final achievable result is, say, 30 or 40% less than your initial demand. The key is you still get the objective, and you're much more likely to get it if you anchor the whole negotiation to some colossal ambition right from the start.
And what's fascinating here is the mechanism he credits for that success. It's this emphasis on instinct over, pure book smarts.
Yeah, the source material suggests that great deal-making is less about what you learn in a classroom and more about an inborn gut-level talent.
Which is an interesting idea because it sort of tries to demystify the process while also making it sound like a superpower.
Well, the argument presented is that while, yeah, a formal education gives you the necessary financial and legal knowledge, it doesn't necessarily give you the courage. It doesn't give you the psychological resilience you need for the high-stakes, real-world street fight of a major deal.
Right. The sources say that really intelligent people, the ones who get perfect report cards and excel in structured academic settings, can sometimes just freeze up.
They freeze up when they face a real negotiation because those are inherently messy, emotional, and completely unpredictable.
So the key difference isn't your IQ, but this specific gut-level courage to take the idea from a perfect spreadsheet into the messy, high-stakes reality of the deal table.
Yes. The individual with, average report cards but really sharp, innate entrepreneurial instincts, plus a willingness to take real risks, will often win out over the pure academic.
That's what separates the doers from the analysts.
Exactly. The people who execute deals from the people who stand on the sidelines writing about them. An intuitive deal maker can sense an opportunity and the risk without needing, pages and pages of consulting reports.
But, okay, that brings up a friction point right away, doesn't it? If success is all about natural instinct, how do we square that with the fact that he went to the Wharton School?
At the University of Pennsylvania, yeah. A top-tier, incredibly rigorous economics program.
It seems like a huge contradiction in the story he sometimes sells.
It's absolutely a contradiction, but it highlights the duality of the strategy. The formal high-level education provides the structure, right?
Yeah.
The technical knowledge, the language of finance, legal frameworks, macroeconomics.
But the instinct provides the drive.
The drive and the timing. The successful model, according to the retrospective, is the combination of the two. It's the inborn will to win, but applied with high-level financial literacy. You need the gut feeling to see the opportunity, and you need the technical knowledge to structure the deal so you don't lose your shirt.
And that belief and instinct is it's completely linked to the second cornerstone, thinking big. And again, we're talking about colossal scale.
The mantra is just so simple. If you're going to spend your time and energy thinking about a project anyway, why put artificial limits on it? Why not dream on the grandest scale you possibly can?
The sources suggest most people just limit themselves by thinking too small. They get bogged down in the little details of small projects.
And what holds them back, according to this philosophy, is usually some deep psychological fear. The fear of success, the fear of making a massive decision.
Or even that weird paradoxical fear of winning, where someone self-sabotages because they're uncomfortable with the responsibility that comes with a huge victory.
And this widespread hesitation, this timidity you see everywhere, that's exactly what creates the opportunity for the bold deal maker. If other people are too intimidated by the sheer scale of a huge project.
Like, say, rebuilding a massive derelict hotel in a city that's basically broke.
Right. The path is cleared for the few who dare to pursue it. The bigger and scarier the project, the less competition you have for that one spectacular prize.
We can trace this whole philosophy back to the single biggest pivot of his early career, moving from his father's world.
Which was solid, but geographically limited. Middle-income apartments in Queens and Brooklyn.
To the ultimate high-wire act, Manhattan.
That Manhattan leap was a declaration of intent. I mean, Fred Trump was a very successful, steady developer. He operated in a reliable, low-risk world, often using government subsidies for housing.
But his son looked across the East River and saw the Manhattan skyline as the only game in town.
And the Commodore Hotel deal in the late 1970s was the proof. It showed he wasn't just his father's son. He was a completely different kind of developer.
Well, let's just paint a picture of that setting. The Commodore was a genuine civic disaster, wasn't it?
Oh, it was an absolute eyesore. A massive, aging 26-story hotel that was just decaying. It was functionally bankrupt, and it was physically located right next to Grand Central Terminal.
Prime real estate, but totally toxic to the whole area.
Most people just saw a money-losing ruin in a city that was bleeding cash. They saw the headache of the unions, the complexity of getting the city to buy in, and the staggering cost of renovation.
But Trump saw the potential for the Grand Hyatt. He saw a chance to turn this highly visible, decaying property into a symbol of urban revival.
It wasn't just a development. It was a high-profile public statement about his arrival. It showed he could do what the city establishment thought was impossible.
It was his coming out party on the national stage.
For sure. By getting these critical tax incentives and doing this radical structural facelift, he turned an ugly financial anchor into a gleaming, high-profile asset. That was the first huge splash that established him as a major player.
And it showed his preference for making one huge statement over a dozen quiet little deals.
And he replicated that scale everywhere he went. When he went into the casino world, he didn't just open a small gambling hall.
No, he envisioned these gigantic complexes in Atlantic City designed to just dominate the market.
Back in Manhattan, he didn't look for a simple office tower lot. He targeted the huge stretch of undeveloped West Side rail yards, a massive 75-acre empty piece of land.
And he planned an entirely new neighborhood, a city within a city of skyscrapers. He consciously went after projects that were just too big for the competition.
It's that singular, almost obsessive focus on these colossal goals that drives the entire machine.
The sources do acknowledge the personal intensity that requires.
Oh, yeah. Living with that kind of drive might not be a relaxed life, but it's undeniably effective. It's how, according to this philosophy, you get history-making results that actually redefine cityscapes.
Okay, so we've established the foundation is all about colossal scale, gut instinct, and this theatrical ambition. But that kind of constant striving for home runs suggests massive, reckless risk.
Which leads us directly into the great paradox. Part 2, the cold, calculated caution that actually defines his strategy.
This is maybe the biggest misunderstanding about the persona.
The sources insist on this. Despite the flamboyant image of the high roller, he says he never truly gambles. He tries to eliminate the gamble entirely by how he structures the deal.
And the quote we have is just perfect for this mindset. I'd rather be the one who owns the slot machine.
It's about making sure the odds are always stacked in your favor, ensuring the structure of the deal is inherently advantageous and insulated against disaster before any real capital goes out the door.
That's the definition of risk mitigation.
It is. The foundational rule, the thing that decides if he even enters a negotiation, is protecting the downside. He always starts by asking, what is the worst-case scenario that could possibly happen if everything goes wrong?
And if that worst-case outcome is something he can't easily absorb, he won't touch the deal. It doesn't matter what the potential upside is.
Exactly. If the potential downside is too terrible and it threatens his capital, he walks. And this isn't just a theory. The sources point to a time where he didn't stick to this rule.
Buying a team in the USFL, the United States Football League in the 80s.
For those who don't remember, yeah, it was a competitor league to the NFL that just collapsed very quickly.
Right. And that venture, which ultimately fell apart and cost him a lot of money, it reinforced his belief that if you're always chasing the home run without a safety net,
You're eventually going to have a devastating strikeout.
Yeah.
That failure, which really stung him financially, it just underscored the absolute importance of preserving capital, even when you're blinded by the glamour of owning a sports team.
Atlantic City, which was probably his most aggressive expansion phase in the 80s, is the perfect case study for how he applied this caution while still thinking big.
It was a masterclass in contingency planning. He was building these colossal casinos, but his personal exposure was severely limited.
So he didn't just rush in and buy property.
No, he structured his acquisition of all this prime boardwalk land using legal options. So he'd pay a small, non-refundable fee for the right to buy the land later. But the final expensive purchase was contingent on two critical things.
Let's break down those two contingencies because they're the core of the strategy.
First, the land purchase was contingent on him successfully getting all the adjacent lots he needed for the full casino site. If one stubborn property owner held out for an insane price, the whole deal could be called off.
So he could walk away from the other properties without a massive loss.
Right. And second, the deal was contingent on the New Jersey gaming authorities approving his casino license.
So he made sure he wouldn't be stuck with millions of dollars of useless land if he couldn't actually operate a casino on it.
Precisely. If either of those crucial conditions failed, no full site or no license, he had the contractual right to terminate the expensive land options. That is pure legal risk mitigation built into the foundation of the deal.
And then he doubled down on that protection even after getting the land and the license by bringing in a huge partner.
That's right. He partnered with the massive Holiday Inn Corporation, who owned the Haraz Casino brand. They agreed to a 50-50 deal.
And Holiday Inn, as this big established company, put up the money for construction.
They put up the money for construction. And, this is crucial, they even agreed to cover the initial operating losses if the casino struggled in its first few years.
That just shows that the flamboyant risk-taker persona is really a leveraged asset. It's built on a foundation of cold, calculated avoidance of personal loss.
It is. He was trading half of the potential, enormous profit, for 50% insurance against catastrophic failure.
Give up half the upside to guarantee that if the casino bombed, he'd only take half the loss.
It's the difference between a pure speculator who bets everything on the outcome and a strategic deal maker who bets on the structure.
And we can really see the genius of this when we contrast it with a major competitor at the time, the hotel magnate Baron Hilton.
Hilton took the opposite approach. He just pure gambled. He built an entire massive casino hotel before he had the state gambling license in hand.
He was making this huge bet that regulatory approval was just a sure thing.
But the license didn't come when he expected. The regulatory hurdles were too high, it was delayed, and then ultimately denied.
So Hilton was left with this multi-million-dollar building that he couldn't legally use for its one intended purpose.
He was forced to sell the project in a dramatic fire sale at a massive discount, all because his risk mitigation strategy was, well, non-existent.
And of course the buyer waiting in the wings to pick it up
Was Trump, who acquired Hilton's doomed project, the property that now had all the risk squeezed out of it, and rebranded it as Trump's Castle.
That incident was such a powerful public lesson.
It really was. If you fail to protect your downside, you're not just risking your own fortune, you're creating a golden opportunity for your most disciplined competitor to capitalize on your mistake at a bargain price.
So beyond protecting the downside, the strategy also demands maximizing your options, never letting yourself get backed into a corner where only one outcome is okay.
The world of real estate development is just too volatile. I mean, financing can dry up overnight, the economy shifts, a partner can back out. His antidote to this is to constantly juggle several major deals at once. If one collapses, he can immediately pivot his attention and resources to another one without panicking.
And within any single big project, the rule is to always have a plan B, C, and D. You mentioned the Penn Central rail yards on West 34th Street. Let's look at that pivot.
The initial vision for that massive 75-acre parcel was residential, building middle-income apartments, which was sort of in line with his father's historical strength.
But that plan just hit a brick wall.
Immediately, New York City was going through a severe financial crisis, and the housing financing just dried up. The deal, as he originally planned it, was bad.
So instead of letting this prime land sit there and bleed money, he just instantly switched gears, activated Plan B.
He started this rigorous 2-year-long campaign of lobbying and negotiation, arguing for a completely different use, a massive convention center. He pushed and pushed officials until the city and state eventually agreed to build the Jacob K. Javits Convention Center on that exact spot.
The lesson is so clear. Maximizing your options lets you turn a huge setback, like a financial crisis, into a huge victory, all because you have a credible backup plan ready to go.
He wasn't emotionally invested in the apartments. He was invested in the potential of the land itself. That flexibility is the real insurance policy. It ensures the capital is always moving forward, even if the initial direction changes radically.
So if part 2 is about the calculated caution, part 3 moves into mastering the intangible environment,
Right.
market, leverage, and the power of the brand itself. And it all starts with this instinctive feel for what the public wants.
Yeah, often in direct opposition to elite opinion. The sources emphasize trusting your own gut feeling over expensive focus groups or consultants. He sees himself as having this natural, intuitive knack for sensing public demand.
And he does this with his informal research.
Right, gathering real-world feedback, not from reports, but by actually talking to people on the ground, taxi drivers, construction workers, pedestrians walking by a location.
He pieces together these insights until he has a confident, real-world read on what will attract customers. And crucially, this means resisting the urge to be swayed by elite architectural critics.
He warns that highbrow tastes change constantly. Chasing every new trend is a mistake. And listening too much to the naysayers can cause you to miss a genuine, deep-seated public appetite for, glamour or scale.
Trump Tower is the perfect illustration of this. When he unveiled the plan for that ultra-luxurious brass, glass, and marble skyscraper on Fifth Avenue.
In the early 80s, yeah, the architectural critics universally slammed it.
They called it gaudy, over-the-top, lacking sophistication.
But Trump was supremely confident the public was hungry for that level of spectacle. He correctly guessed there was a massive market that wanted visible, undeniable glamour and opulence, something they couldn't get from the more reserved, minimalist architecture that was popular with critics at the time.
He believed people wanted flash and spectacle, and he was willing to deliver it.
And he was absolutely right. When Trump Tower opened, it wasn't just a building, it was a phenomenon. Crowds poured in to see the 5-story indoor waterfall and the shiny gold escalators.
And commercially, the stores and apartments sold fast at premium prices. The success just validated his market read over the expert opinion.
And what's fascinating is that the building itself, because it was so successful, eventually started getting critical praise years later. It proved that sometimes overwhelming commercial demand can actually dictate aesthetic approval.
That success flows right into the next vital point: the art of creating leverage.
Leverage is defined as having something to bargain with, a structural or psychological advantage that makes the other side eager or even desperate to give you what you want.
And the sources are adamant. Looking desperate is the kiss of death. If you walk in without leverage, you walk in powerless.
Right. And if there isn't obvious leverage, the core strategy is that you have to find a way to manufacture it. You have to maneuver yourself into a position where the other side either desperately needs you or fears what happens if you're not involved.
The Commodore Hotel deal is a masterclass in this. We mentioned he needed that unprecedented 40-year tax abatement.
A massive property tax reduction. The city was deeply resistant to giving up that much potential tax revenue for half a century.
So Trump used the decaying hotel itself as his bargaining chip.
He convinced the bankrupt owners to publicly announce they were shutting the hotel down immediately. This created the threat of a massive, empty, graffiti-covered ruin right next to Grand Central.
That's incredible leverage. He didn't just ask for a tax break, he manufactured a crisis using the threat of urban ruin as collateral.
And city officials realized that saving the Commodore from becoming this blighted monument to urban decay was suddenly politically and economically far more important than collecting the full property taxes. His gambit worked. The city, eager to avoid the embarrassment, granted the tax abatement on his terms.
He shifted the focus from giving away revenue to saving the city's appearance.
We see similar psychological tactics with the Atlantic City partnership with Holiday Inn. That was leveraged through momentum.
Right, he started construction early.
When the Holiday Inn executives visited the site to discuss the 50-50 partnership, he made sure construction was already visibly underway. They saw steel and concrete rising. That visual proof of momentum made them eager to sign, feeling they'd miss out. It strengthened his negotiating position hugely.
And even something as simple as naming a property can be used as leverage. The West Side Rail Yards again.
When NBC was looking for a new headquarters in the late 80s, Trump strategically named the property Television City.
Just the name itself created pressure.
It was a powerful marketing tool. It implied a major TV studio complex was destined for that land, and it pressured both NBC and the city to seriously consider his proposal, or risk losing the network and thousands of jobs. He manufactured urgency just by framing the possibility.
In all these cases, he created a necessity, a fear of loss, or a sense of momentum that tilted the negotiation in his favor before they even started bargaining.
And that leads to the final point here, enhancing the location. We all know the real estate cliche. Location, location, location.
But his philosophy takes it a step further. He believes a savvy developer can actively enhance a location and make it more valuable. You don't always have to pay for the absolute best address if you can improve the neighborhood by building something spectacular.
The strategy is to pick a spot that's maybe less than perfect, and then elevate it through superior design, aggressive marketing, and the strength of the Trump brand itself.
Back to Trump Tower, it was already on a prime corner. But he enhanced that famous location, making the building synonymous with over-the-top luxury. It became a destination.
But the real test was moving away from that prime corner. A few years later, he built Trump Plaza on 3rd Avenue and 61st Street. At the time, 3rd Avenue was a solid address, but it wasn't considered top tier for ultra-luxury real estate.
So he applied the formula, pour quality into the design, and then used the aggressive branding, the name proudly displayed, to give the address prestige.
And the outcome was highly successful. Wealthy buyers were eager to live there, proving that the synergy between a superior product and a strong brand can effectively elevate a location's reputation. He created value where others saw only latent potential.
Okay, moving now to part 4. Execution, defense, and the critical nuts and bolts that prove the flashy parts are built on substance. And it all starts with getting the word out.
Publicity is paramount. The source material is blunt. No matter how magnificent your project is, nobody will buy it if they don't know it exists. And media coverage, especially front-page news, is valued far more than expensive advertising.
And the key insight here is the willingness to happily stir up controversy or exaggeration if it guarantees landing projects on the front page.
The underlying philosophy is that being talked about, even critically, is universally better than being ignored. Controversy generates buzz, and buzz brings in business.
The proposal to build the world's tallest building on the Hudson River rail yards is a classic example of this. It was largely rhetorical.
It was more of an aspirational, provocative idea than a carefully detailed plan, but it generated enormous, sustained headlines globally.
Critics and neighborhood groups hated the outrageous scale of the proposal, which only intensified the public debate, turning it into a running news story.
But from a business standpoint, the land suddenly became infamous. Everyone knew the name, and everyone knew Trump had a huge project brewing there. This notoriety significantly increased interest from investors and the public.
He also mastered managing the narrative once the media spotlight was on him.
He developed this immediate, reflexive defense, turned tough questions around, and shift the focus to undeniable positives. If reporters questioned the extravagance, he'd pivot to the thousands of jobs being created or the revitalization of a neighborhood.
He sells the grand, positive vision.
And this brings us to that specific term he coined for his promotional style: truthful hyperbole.
So what exactly is that? Is it just a fancy term for exaggeration?
It's his way of justifying his tendency toward these grandiose statements that stretch the literal truth. He argues they're rooted in an underlying truth, the fact that the project is indeed ambitious or luxurious, and the exaggeration is just showmanship designed to generate excitement.
The philosophy is that a little exaggeration is acceptable as long as you eventually deliver a product that lives up to the general spirit of the promise.
Exactly. And now we pivot from selling the vision to defending the interests. The philosophy here is uncompromisingly confrontational. You must fight back hard.
He completely rejects the idea of turning the other cheek.
When treated unfairly, The strategy dictates that you immediately engage in a public and legal showdown. While that's inherently risky, the belief is that standing up for yourself scares off bullies and rivals. It's a form of deterrence.
The fight over the tax break for Trump Tower is the quintessential example of this tenacity.
The building was legally entitled to a standard tax abatement, but New York City officials initially refused to grant it, largely for political reasons.
Instead of accepting that, which most developers would have done to avoid a costly legal battle, he went to war.
Legally. He sued the city of New York 6 times to secure that abatement. That's a massive commitment of time and resources for a tax break.
It was seen by many as a self-destructive battle against City Hall.
Yet, he persisted. He argued his case based on existing law, and he eventually won the court case, securing the tax relief. And in doing so, he set a legal precedent that benefited other developers later.
He proved that persistence works, even against powerful government resistance. And it's more than just that one tax interest. It's about creating that deterrence.
Exactly. Rivals and critics learn quickly that he won't give up, which makes them think twice before trying to take advantage in the future. It's an investment in a tough public reputation.
But the sources stress that all the hype, all the fighting, is useless without the next critical step. You must deliver the goods.
That's the necessary ballast. You can't con people for long, as he puts it. If you grab attention with flashy marketing, you must follow through with an undeniably quality product. Your reputation is always on the line.
We saw this when Trump Tower was successful. Other developers tried to copy the formula, the glitzy atriums and fancy amenities, but they cut costs on the actual luxury features.
And their buildings failed to capture the public's imagination because they didn't match the initial hype. Trump, operating at the highest end, was willing to spend the money for the Italian marble and the 5-story waterfall. If you promise ultra-luxury, you have to deliver ultra-luxury.
And finally, despite all the flash and the expenditure on marble, we come back to the most unglamorous, fundamental business principle: rigorous cost containment.
Along with the billion-dollar dreams comes a meticulous, almost microscopic attention to the bottom line. He learned from his father that every penny counts. The sources describe him personally scrutinizing contractor bills, arguing relentlessly over anything that looked overpriced.
These are the nuts and bolts. Those little savings, accumulated across a massive skyscraper project, can easily turn into millions of dollars.
This discipline was vital in cutthroat markets like Atlantic City. Many rivals faced massive budget overruns. Trump Plaza, his first casino hotel, notably opened on time and on budget, meaning it was bringing in massive summer revenue while competitors were still struggling with ballooning costs.
The ultimate efficiency example, the story that cemented his reputation in New York as a can-do guy, has to be the Woolman Rink renovation.
It's the perfect narrative. The city had spent 6 years and millions of taxpayer dollars trying to rebuild the public ice skating rink, and it was still a broken, empty hole in the ground.
Bureaucratic red tape, poor contracting.
Right. Trump publicly volunteered to take over the project, promising to finish it quickly and efficiently.
And he did. He completed the reconstruction in just a few months, significantly under the city's final budget.
New Yorkers were genuinely amazed. It cemented his reputation as someone who cuts through red tape and delivers results. That was a more powerful piece of publicity than building the tallest tower.
And wrapping up this section, the final philosophy point is deceptively simple, but necessary for the grueling pace. Have fun.
For him, work has to be a form of play. Deals are a sport, a high-stakes game where the thrill is in the competition. Money is a way of keeping score, as the sources suggest, but the real excitement is playing the game. That passion is what keeps him motivated.
Okay, we have spent a lot of time dissecting the business manual, the tactics of caution, leverage, and showmanship. Now we have to shift to the ultimate case study. The man, the brand, and the unfolding legacy, drawing from the biographical retrospective up to 2025.
To understand the persona, we have to start at the foundation. Donald John Trump, born in 1946 in Queens, New York. His father, Fred Trump, was already a highly successful real estate developer focused on middle-income rental units in the outer boroughs. That provided the financial springboard.
And it's interesting to note the discipline applied early on. The sources describe him as having behavioral difficulties as a teenager.
A high energy level, a bit of defiance.
And his parents enrolled him in the New York Military Academy at age 13.
That experience was transformative. It instilled a sense of structure, aggressive competition, and routine. He thrived there, graduating in '64, before moving on to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He got his economics degree in 1968.
So while he champions instinct, he definitely acquired the foundational knowledge to analyze markets.
We also have to place this early life in the context of the Vietnam era. The sources mention 4 student draft deferments while he was in college.
And then a medical deferment after graduation attributed to bone spurs in his feet, which prevented him from being drafted.
And upon finishing Wharton, he immediately joined his father's company. But that thinking big philosophy took root, and he consciously abandoned the safe path of borough development to pursue the much riskier but far more glamorous world of Manhattan.
His career saw 2 decades of dizzying expansion in the 80s, followed by a near-catastrophic financial collapse in the early 90s. This roller coaster is crucial to understanding his later political appeal as the guy who always comes back.
The 80s were defined by spectacular, heavily financed acquisitions. The Grand Hyatt, Trump Tower, the historic Plaza Hotel, and the massive undertaking of 3 Atlantic City casinos.
He was diversifying rapidly, even buying an airline and a yacht.
And this was all fueled by enormous bank loans, based on the confidence that the real estate market would just keep going up forever.
So he was leveraging his assets heavily. When the U.S. economy hit a recession in 1990, that debt structure became an existential threat.
This is where it gets critical. He was massively overextended. Corporate debt money owed by his casinos and hotels totaled about $5 billion. And crucially, the sources highlight that he had personally guaranteed nearly $1 billion of that.
Just to be clear for the listener, what's the significance of a personal guarantee?
The personal guarantee means that if the corporation goes bankrupt and can't pay the loan, the bank has the legal right to seize the individual's personal assets, his homes, his private wealth, his cash, to cover the loss. That billion-dollar personal guarantee meant his entire empire and his personal net worth were facing immediate destruction.
The situation got dire very quickly.
In 91 and 92, multiple casinos and the Plaza Hotel filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. He was forced into a massive asset sale, unloading the yacht, the airline, big chunks of his equity in projects. Major U.S. banks, burned by the crisis, refused him new credit.
Some estimates put his net worth nearly $900 million in the red, a staggering amount that would have ended most careers.
Yet he engineered this phenomenal comeback by the mid-90s, using the same aggressive negotiation tactics we discussed. He leveraged the bank's own fears of a complete loss.
The fight back hard philosophy was crucial here.
He restructured payments with the banks. A booming economy helped, but he also had to find new lenders. The sources highlight that Deutsche Bank became a major new partner, allowing him to finance new projects.
But the real strategic shift was capitalizing on the personal brand itself, licensing the Trump name.
This was the ultimate pivot. He transformed his surname from a signature into a revenue stream. He started licensing the name globally for hotels, residential towers, golf courses. This generated massive fee revenue for buildings he didn't even have to finance himself. The name became the product.
The brand was monetized, providing a steady, less risky stream of income that was crucial for his recovery.
And the ultimate reinvention of that brand came in 2004 with television, The Apprentice.
A cultural phenomenon, it ran for 14 seasons and served as a massive advertisement for the Trump brand globally.
It portrayed him as the ultimate shrewd, decisive business mogul who could sniff out talent and ruthlessly manage operations.
It coined the "you're fired" catchphrase, making him a household name for a whole new generation who might not have remembered the 90s bankruptcies.
And it was incredibly lucrative. The sources estimated generated roughly $200 million in earnings for him, injecting a massive amount of capital and, more importantly, providing this highly visible platform that fundamentally changed his celebrity status and set the stage for his next act.
This successful image cultivation, the extravagant wealth, the distinct appearance, is central to the persona and the deep polarization he generates, and the sources detail 2 very sharply conflicting views of this public figure.
And we have to report these impartially, understanding they reflect the deep divisions in public discourse. So, to his admirers, he's seen as a straight-talking icon who projects strength, confidence, and patriotism.
They see him as the ultimate non-politician, unfazed by political correctness, who fights for the forgotten men and women against what they see as a corrupt globalist elite.
They credit his time in office with significant achievements. Economic policies focused on deregulation and tax cuts, reshaping the judiciary with conservative appointments, and a firmness in foreign relations.
And critically, regarding the controversial statements and exaggerations we discussed as truthful hyperbole.
His base often interprets those as rhetorical style, a way of communicating his frustration with the system. They take his words seriously but not literally, focusing on the underlying policy intent rather than the precise delivery.
Conversely, the detractors' view is built on a foundation of deep skepticism. Critics view the entire empire and persona as built primarily on relentless self-promotion, arguing he habitually distorts the truth to a breathtaking degree.
The sources cite specific claims, noting the analysis by the Washington Post's fact-checkers, who counted over 30,000 false or misleading claims during his presidency, a statistic frequently cited by those concerned about the erosion of truth in public life.
Detractors also focus heavily on his use of divisiveness, the rhetoric, the stoking of racial and social tensions, pointing to examples like his comments after the Charlottesville protests, the travel ban, and the family separation policy. They see these actions as fundamentally challenging democratic norms.
But regardless of the perspective, the sources agree on his overwhelming cultural dominance. His celebrity status commands attention, unlike anyone else in American politics.
His rallies became these cultural phenomena, part political event, part entertainment spectacle. His unique speaking style, the use of superlatives, hyperbole, sentence fragments, ensured that every statement became immediate, headline-grabbing content.
That innate showmanship, honed on reality TV, allowed him to manipulate the media effectively. The spotlight was always on him, cementing his status as a permanent, larger-than-life figure.
That showmanship and unprecedented political transformation bring us to the unfolding legacy examined up to April 2025. His career path tycoon to reality star to the presidency twice is nearly unheard of.
His post-2020 refusal to concede the election and his subsequent successful 2024 return to power just cemented his place in history, initiating a fundamental, irreversible realignment of the American political landscape.
The loyalty of his base is enduring. We've witnessed the emergence of Trumpism, a blend of nationalism, anti-elitism, and strongman politics that now dominates the GOP's direction.
And the sources acknowledge that the final verdict on his legacy remains highly polarized and unsettled. Supporters view him as a transformational president who broke the mold. Critics, meanwhile, view him as a demagogue who weakened institutions and governed with chaos.
While early scholarly surveys of presidential historians have often placed him near the bottom in overall leadership, the sources stress that these assessments are dynamic and subject to change. As of early 2025, his ability to dominate the discourse is proof that his story is still unfolding.
Love him or loathe him, the scale of his impact on American life is just undeniable. This has been an extensive journey into the business playbook and career arc that built this unprecedented public figure.
Absolutely. What stands out most clearly now in synthesizing all this is that core tension, the paradox. The successful dealmaker is this wild mix of the bold visionary who only operates on a grand scale,
but who is simultaneously an intensely calculated risk reducer, relying equally on cold strategic moves like leverage creation, contingency planning, and rigorous cost control. The theatrical hype had to be backed up by expensive, quality delivery.
And if we connect this all back to you, the listener, the ultimate provocation is this. How transferable are these principles, really?
We've dissected the art of the deal, which champions instinct, showmanship, and aggressive deterrence, but is its effectiveness inseparable from the unique, polarizing, and dominating Trump persona itself?
Put another way, does the playbook work for anyone with the ambition to try it? Or is the ability to deploy truthful hyperbole and aggressive deterrence only effective when executed by someone who has already achieved the celebrity status and financial might to withstand the constant turbulence that approach creates?
What happens when towering ambition meets cold, calculated caution? It creates a historical force whose influence, for better or worse, will be debated for decades.
A powerful thought to ponder. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the philosophy and career of Donald Trump.
We'll see you next time.